indicators which were not performing. So that's why we found ourselves in that scenario. However, looking at the period when Zambia was closed down up to now, there's been developments that have taken place. The population has increased, and we know that population is also one factor that is very critical in relation to running an airline. However, what we observe is that in Africa, a number of airlines are making losses. I think the only profitable airline in Africa should be Ethiopian Airlines. And also with Ethiopian, so we have several factors. The population is quite large. The location that Ethiopia has as the Horn of Africa has got a near proximity to Europe and the Middle East as well. And that's why most European nations and American states have got a 10-hour distance to Ethiopia. And that's what has caused Ethiopia to thrive. The rest of the airlines have had a challenge. So for us as a nation, we are premising this introduction to say Zambia should be the hub of the southern region. Automatically, that means we're going to compete with South African Airlines, which is at the south. And then, basically, the question for us is what market do we have as Zambia, looking at the countries that are in SADC? And also, what are the numbers of people who travel within the region, looking at what has been said to say the airline will focus on local routes for now, and then go to region and then international later on. And then, before I proceed, we were also told to look at the policy environment, which I think has been beamed, but I think the font is quite small. I don't know if people give, so I'll just continue talking. I think in a nutshell, the legal and regulatory framework is quite sufficient because as Zambia, we also subscribe to different protocols such as the International Civil Aviation Organization, the International Air Transport Association, which are the two main bodies that govern aviation internationally. Then also under SADC, we are under the SADC Aviation Safety Organization. And then here at home, we are guided by the Civil Aviation Authority Act, the National Transport Policy, as well as the actual bodies, the Civil Aviation Authority, we have the National Airports Corporation, and Zambia Airport Training Institute, that is ZAST. So we have the regulators, we have the actual institutions, we have the training institutions. Now, the question therefore is, what are the anticipated impacts of the national airline? Of course, we've been premising to say Zambians will benefit by employment, but I think let's go back to what we know so far about the agreement. So we know that Zambia has signed an agreement with Ethiopia, where Zambia will have 55%, and Ethiopia takes the rest. But we should bear in mind that Ethiopia has a Vision 2025 where it has clearly laid out what it wants to do by 2025. And Ethiopia has stated clearly that by 2025 they want to have more than 30–40% share of the African airspace. That's why Ethiopia is not reluctant to have partnerships with other airlines. It has done that with Malawi, it has done that with ASCI in West Africa, it is about to do that with Togo, and it has done that with Zambia. So we are dealing with a champion that really knows how to run the aviation sector for years, and that knows how to make profit for years. However, maybe a merit that we see is that Africa has just signed the CFTA, Continental Free Trade Area, which has opened up the whole continent for trade. It has removed all these barriers and tariffs. That means that there will be a lot of trade going on around Africa. So for us, I feel if we focus around SADC and the trade that will be going around, maybe our location can come in as a strategic place for trade to take place between countries that we border, as well as countries going into Central Africa. However, that will only come up when the CFTA has been fully signed and is in effect. And also we feel that the fact that the company will be headquartered in Zambia as well means that, of course, there would be employment opportunities for some Zambians, but we feel that it will not be much. The previous Zambian Airlines had too many members of staff, and actually when it was closed, we saw those statistics of almost 2,000 people retrenched. But if you see the kind of jobs that were being done, there was too many members of staff chasing fewer jobs in the defunct Zambian Airways. And we have to do away with that. I think this time around we have to look at the actual jobs that are needed and the people that should actually go to those jobs. Then if you look at the demerits, of course the fact that they will be loss making for 3 to 5 years is quite concerning, meaning we are entering into uncharted waters, and that might be a challenge. Also, if we don't deal with other issues that caused the previous airline to fall in terms of financial mismanagement. However, if you learn an example from Ethiopia, yes, it can be owned by the government through ITC, but it should be run by the private sector. by technocrats. And that's what Ethiopian model has done. Government has no interference with the national airline. And if they come strict with that strategy to Zambia, we feel that it can work. But ultimately, it will be up to us, Zambia. Statistics show us that as of last year, I think we failed to meet our targets of the number of arrivals that we want in terms of tourism. There were just over 1 million. Locally, again, we have the statistics. Not many people are utilizing the airports. The capacity we have now is almost 2 million in terms of the airport capacity to run passengers, but we only manage 1.2. And when KK Airport is complete, it will have the capacity to run 6 million passengers, but we are only at 1.2 million. So already it shows that there is a gap in terms of passengers. Then also, the fact that the aviation industry in Africa is struggling with losses might also befall our Zambian Airways if we do not actually put modalities in place. South Africa, there was talks of South Africa closing last year. It's asked for a bailout from the government of about 2.4 billion because it is failing to run. Jet fuel has continued to rise. Competition is high. And also in the Zambian case, we're asking what happens to Proflight and Mahogany, for example, because those two are operating. So how about an agreement of those two being empowered, continue servicing maybe the local route, then the Zambian airline looks at the regional route for now. That would be a much more viable business opportunity because those bigger planes can carry cargo and passengers within the region than Zambia. Because Zambia, the main profitable routes, it's Lusaka to Livingstone, Lusaka to Copperbelt. Fue actually has low figures. And those two routes will be saturated. There will be Zambia Airways, there will be Proflight, there will be Mahogany, there will be Royal Air Charter. So we feel competition would be high and they might crowd out Proflight and Mahogany as well. Of course, in terms of infrastructure, I think we are doing great. The KK International Airport has an investment of $360 million US. And I think looking at the amount of money we've spent in that airport, it's only right that yes, we look at having an airline, but the question is, are we ready now? And that's where the conversation is. We have the infrastructure, fine. And I think apart from KK, we have about 4 other fully functional airports, and also National Airports has taken over the running of airstrips. So I think Zambia is well connected in terms of infrastructure. In terms of training needs, we have ZAST, which has been doing a good job, but I think it also needs capacity in terms of latest technologies and simulators for the pilots as well. How about if Zambia uses the location and comes up with a very vibrant training hub and attracts people from across the region to also come and train? How about if we have huge cargo facilities that can be used as storage in Zambia? So for us, I think we're still recommending that the model that Ethiopian Airlines has to run its own airline is very viable because it has 7 profit points, not just the passenger routes, but cargo, training, catering services as well as fire services. So if we look at that value chain around the Zambia Airways that you want to bring on board, then we'll make profit.
All that you have submitted appear to be things that are in my mind. Now, what step have you made that you have observed or made all those observations in terms of advising the government, maybe writing to government to say these are observations on what we were about to do, which is probably bound to fail. That's the reason I'm asking the relationship with government and the creation.
I think the first question had to deal with, I think, our relationship with the government. Of course, Pmrc is set up as an NGO and is a grant-aided institution, but beyond government, of course, we do get support from donors. And so, in terms of us providing policy advice to government, this is something that we do on a one-on-one basis. Sometimes we write these reports directly to either affected ministries or relevant authorities. And I think our work speaks for itself in terms of credibility, because the Honourable Member, I think, was referring to us, I think, basically saying things that were on his mind. And of course, that demonstrates, I think, the objectivity of the work of Pmrc. We do enjoy relative autonomy, and I guess, yeah, I hope that addresses the issues.
Particularly on this subject, have you submitted anything to make recommendations? to engage them.
Yes, we have engaged the government, even at the level of secretary to the cabinet. We had a public forum where we invited the public and we made presentations.
Why do you think the flow of information has been so inconsistent as a research center?
In terms of the airline.
In terms of information, the airline, the strategy, the planes, you know, you mentioned there was Russia.
Yes.
I'm aware that at least the Secretary of Cabinet went to Russia several times. And then today you're mentioning Brazil.
Yes.
Why do you think there's been so much inconsistency in the flow of information to the extent for such a very important project?
Yes.
And very costly?
Yes.
Thanks.
As to the issues to do with how established Ethiopian infrastructure is in terms of airline, because they conduct training for other airlines. They have a fully fledged maintenance infrastructure, operational airframe maintenance, as well as a certified infrastructure by the U.S. Federal Aviation Authority. So they are serious about the business, and if we are going to get into this business, that's why we're concerned about issues to do with the type of planes that we're going to buy. At some point, Ethiopia, I think, had tried to bring in Russian planes when they were running oil, and that would have been, of course, a disaster for them, because they would have had to overhaul their entire training and infrastructure equipment to just switch to Russian aviation. And so, as a country, we are cognizant of the fact that if we have to pick an airline, we should choose a route, I think, that where we can build upon something. So if we have infrastructure here in Zambia, we should be able to build on that infrastructure that we have, and the schools and the maintenance and training manuals should conform to the type of airplane